Now let's do a little bit of refactoring. Let's move this handler func into its own separate file. So that the main.go is mainly for the project setup, and then we're gonna have a handler.go just for the handling the request and response. We're also gonna have the models file, which is used for interactions with databases and other file systems. So at the root of your project, let's create a new directory. Let's call it handler. And then inside of it, let's create a new Go file. So just call it handler.go. And then the package is handler, and then let's paste that in the function. And then let's name it hello. All right, so in Golang, if you wanted to export functions to other packages, remember to capitalize your first letter. So let's go back to main.go, and inside of the server.handle func, let's import the package. So handler.hello, and then remove the parentheses. And then as you can see, the IDE also help us import the correct package. So now let's restart the program. Make sure that everything still works. Let's hit send. All right, now it says status 200, and then here it says hello world, but this time it's from the handler.go line 9, which is this one. So that means our refactoring works. Next, let's add some request logging to the project. So to do that, we need to write a custom logger middleware. So a middleware is actually just a set of functions that sits in the middle of incoming request and the actual handler function. So whenever a request coming in, it will first go through a set of middlewares, the middlewares processing the request, and then pass it down to the correct handler function. All right, so let's go to the project directory and create a new directory called middleware. And then inside of it, let's write a new Go file called logger.go. All right, the package is middleware, and then let's write our middleware function. So func request logger, and then we'll take a parameter. It's typically called next. So it's a HTTP dot handler type, and then it will also return HTTP handler. All right. So inside of it, let's return dot HTTP handler func. So it's a function with response writer and then request, and then inside of it, first of all, we wanted to output the request incoming timestamp. So let's call it start equals time dot now. And then we call the next handler to process the request. So next dot serve HTTP response writer and then request. And then after that, we can finally print out our request log. So fmt dot just print lane. First element I want to be the application name, so let's call it cloud drive. And then the second is the start timestamp, so start dot take a little formatting, so 2006 0102 space, and then 1504 and then 05. All right. The next element should be r dot method, and then next is r dot url dot path. All right, the last element is the processing duration, so it is time dot since start. All right, so that's our custom request logger, and then we need to use that in our main.go file. So inside of listen and serve, let's do so middleware request logger, and then we put server inside of request logger. So this way, whenever request incoming, it will first go through the request logger, then go through the server to routes to the correct handler. All right, let's restart the program, and then let's pull up Postman right here, and then let's send a request. Now go back to the IDE. As you can see, it prints out hello world and also our request log. So that means the request logger is working correctly. Now I also want to output the response status code in the logger. So to do that, there is no way to access the response code directly from the response writer. So we need to create a wrapper around the regular response writer and then add the status code with it. So to do that, let's define a new struct. So type, let's call it, so request log response writer. It's a struct. And then it takes a regular response writer and also a status code as a integer. All right, and then let's create a function. So basically a initializer. So function request logger response writer as a request logger response writer type. It's the right header function. So it takes a status code as parameter, and then inside of it, so it's the status code equals status code, and then dot response writer dot right header status code. All right, so now we implement the right header function. We can use it to replace the regular response writer in our logger. So before we call the next serve HTTP, let's initialize our request logger response writer. So request logger response writer equals request logger response writer, and then it takes two parameters. The first one is the regular response writer, and the second one is the status code. So it defaults to http.status OK. All right, now in the serve HTTP, let's use it. So to replace the regular response writer, and then when the next handler finish processing, we can actually access the status code in our logger. So after the r.method, method, let's put in so rlrw dot status code. All right, so let's restart the program and then pull up Postman. So let's send the request. Now go back to the console. As you can see, now it has the status code 200 output in the console. That means our custom logger is complete right now. Next, let's create a configuration file for this project so that we can move some of the hard-coded values into environment variables. To do that, I like to use a package called go.env. Basically, we put all of our environment variables into a .env file in our project's root directory. And then when we start the program, the go.env package will read this file and load all of the values into system memory. And then we can basically use all these values anywhere in our application. So let's head over to go.env's GitHub page and then scroll down to find the installation command. And then we copy this command and go back to our IDE. So back in the IDE, let's open up terminal and then let's paste the command and then hit enter. So this will install the go.env package for us. Next, we need to create the .env file. So in our root directory. So let's create a new file called .env. And then as of right now, we don't have too much to put in. So we want to put the port number inside of it. So let's do port equals 8080. And then also for the logger, we want this application name to be put inside of the env file. So call it app name equals cloud drive without space. All right, now so we create the .env file, and then in our main.go, we need to initialize the go.env package. So before we create the server, let's actually load the environment variable. Let's do error equals go.env.load. Right, we can just load and without passing in any parameters, because it will actually looking for the .env file in our root directory. And then let's actually define the error message up here, so then we can use it in our program, and then remove this colon because we already defined it. So, and then let's go back to the go.env. Let's deal with this error. So if error is not null, let's print out some message. So slog.error fail to load .env file, and then let's add the error message. All right, and then we exit the program. All right, so now if there's no error, that means the go.env loads the environment variable successfully, and then we can use that in our program. So let's actually use the port number. So let's define a port variable equals, we can use the os.getEnv function to load environment variables. The name of the variable should be this one, the port. So let's paste that in, and then we can use this to replace, first of all, let's replace this log message. So port plus port variable, and then plus the ... And then here also we can replace this listen and serve plus port variable. All right, and then go back to the logger. Let's replace this app name with environment variable. So let's do os.getEnv, and then the environment variable name should be app name. Let's replace that. All right, so let's run our program. Make sure it still works. All right, now let's go to Postman. All right, so let's click send. It says status okay. And as you can see, the app name is there, and then program runs just like before. All right, so that concludes our project setup, and then we can move on to write the actual endpoints for our file service.